recognize what he's saying. Number one, that just never worked because his voice can't go beyond the third or fourth row, really. And then, you know, the whole environment was not just ideal enough. So what you see is that just because just the 10% of the class that sits close to the front are the ones that are able to hear him. Yes, they take the notes the best they can, and then everybody else has to copy, you know, what the next person or the person in front of them has written down. And we saw a very unfortunate trend because a larger portion or percentage of the class dwelled on copying what the other person or the person in front of them was writing down. The process of information degradation right from the front all the way to the back was alarming. By the time you went halfway down the, down the class, you realize that the narration, the narrative has completely changed. You know, the notes that were being taken is completely different from what the lecturer up front was talking about. And then more than half of the class leave that class with the wrong content, if I can say. And then they read up on all of that and get ready for the exams. And then the news is it's mass failure. A lot of people failed. But you realize that if we're able to leverage technology by making content readily available online, and it's available for students to access, students have access to this content, one, before class. So when they come to class, class time can be more around conversations, right? And not about taking notes. That's stage one. Stage two, the process of consuming the content is like a one-to-one, you know, it's like it's just you and your lecturer, really. And that is a huge multiplier effect. Three, students can now pause and review the content for as many times as they would need to. We actually did get a feedback from a couple of the students. The most notable, I say this anytime I have the opportunity to, most notable was that a student said, for the first time, I can rewind my lecturer, you know, and I can imagine because in the normal face-to-face class, I bet, you know, we all have experienced it at one time or the other. We're busy trying to, you know, write as fast as the lecturer is dictating, and then you miss a few lines, and then you go, sorry, sir, can you go back, or can you take that again? Lecturer is already tired, is frustrated in managing such a huge class. He's not interested in doing that. So most of the times, either you get ignored, or the lecturer angrily goes back and just, you know, mumbles the whole thing again. But all of that is taken away. Now you have the content available. You can, I mean, if it's video, you can rewind and listen. You can consume the content for as many times as you need to. You're able to take notes a lot more effectively. And this time around, if you don't understand any concept or detail, you can note it down so that class time can now be about conversation, you know, because you've been given access to this content, you know, ahead of class. And now let's just talk about it, you know, and that's a much more effective and beneficial use of class time. So by virtue of understanding this, you know, a lot of the lecturers now came around and said, oh, okay. Now I see technology as an enabler. I see it as a tool, you know, to actually help me, you know, to be a lot more effective. And by and large, technology as a whole, that's what it is. That's what it has always been, you know. Part of the issue, you know, with us in Nigeria, you know, let me be particular, is that we are a consumer society. So most of the time, we just take what comes without really adapting it, without really putting it to solve problems, right? We just adopt. This is how it is being used. Let's use it that way. But how about adapting it, you know, to different scenarios, to different use cases, you know, that we have around us? That makes technology a lot more effective. That makes technology a lot more influential, you know, if we're able to do that.
All right. Thank you so much, Femi. I think that was quite enlightening. The challenges and the reception. I think so. With more enlightenment and exposure, people are able to embrace the benefits of technology. Now, a quick one for those who are just joining in. Our host is the CTO and co-founder of Edutech, and they've been making waves in the educational sector using technology, leveraging upon technology. And Femi, just a quick one. I'm an alumnus of OAU as well, so I have
Oh,
a
fantastic.
practical experience of what you're talking about. I was in the humanities, and then we had a very large class. So most of the time at ODLT 1 and ODLT 2, I don't know if you remember.
Ah,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Yeah, so we have a very large class, and then we are seated on the ground. The lecturer is at the front row. Those at the front can only hear. Those from the middle down to the back can barely hear. So I know I have a very clear experience of what you're saying. I think it's only by the
Exactly.
mercy of God that some of us were able to, graduate with good grades. So I'll just go straight to the next question because we have a lot of tech enthusiasts on this webinar, and they want to know for a startup that's doing really well like yours, um, how did you pick your winning team? Because we know you're a co-founder, and I remember earlier on you stated how you're able to collaborate with someone who had similar objectives like you did as at the time you started. So how did you pick your winning team? And secondly, when you pick talents, do you have some qualities you look out for? Skills or character or competence? What skills do you look out for when you recruit talent? So that's like two questions in one. How you pick your winning team, and then the qualities you look out for when you try to recruit or source talents.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. So huh, a winning team. Now that is more like the secret ingredient, for any successful business or any successful startup, right? But in our case, and this is something I learned very, very, very early on, and that is you need to have the right mix, right? And it's all about one, making sure you have the right, you have people with the right mindset, right? Peter Drucker, said something, many years ago, and it's something you might have heard before, to say culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And in a similar vein, you say character is a defining, quality. Skills can be taught, right? But attitude is forever. So at the end of the day, the people determine the success. So invariably, you want people who believe in what it is you're doing, who believe in the cause. You need people who are self-motivated. You need people who are driven, and then you see what that composition brings to the table are people who will go the extra mile to make sure that things work. You need people who are self-starters, who are self-motivated. I mean, people who will stay up late into the night thinking of a solution to the challenge you probably have in getting things to run. When I conduct interviews, for positions, in a business, I don't really weigh heavily on how highly skilled you are, but how passionate you are and how much of a team player you are, how well you handle pressure, your approach to problem solving, are things I actually do look out for, because these are the key qualities, that are highly, highly necessary, for the business to scale, for the business to actually survive. Because it is guaranteed, right, that they're going to face a lot of challenges in the business, and you want the right type of people with you. You want the right team. Okay, so those are in my books. Those are the key qualities that I look out for, and it has helped. So permit me to share an experience, where this actually, came out, and it humbled me, if I can use that word. One of the startups I had, before Edutech, it's called Multistream. Um, Now, motivation was a pivotal point, because it actually did, create a whole lot. I mean, a major opportunity that got me into Edutech Global. And that is coming together to actually create a product, or build a product, also in education. But it was a small team, right? And this time, all I had was the savings I had, amassed over the years, and got into setting up this little company. I was able to put together just about 5 people, but I made sure that these were people who, number one, who understood what we were trying to do, as well as passionate about what we were trying to achieve. The first couple of months, pretty went well. And then, of course, by default, the challenges started to rear their heads one after the other. And things gradually became tougher and tougher. And for me, I mean, I had the responsibility of making sure that, all of the guys on the team are well taken care of, that their needs are met, so that they're able to remain productive. I mean, and then you also had the other side of things to make sure that, one, the bills are paid. The bills don't care, what your funding level is, or what the health, or your financial health is. They don't care about that. The bills will just come month after month. I had all of that to worry about. But the beautiful thing is that the team stayed strong and would actually come, once it was the end of the month, and say, wow, okay, this is the situation, and we know things are really tough now. Let us plan, and let us appropriate resources accordingly. Let us settle, the big, most important bills. Don't worry about us. I actually had such comments, and then you realize you couldn't have a better team, when you have the people who understand natively the situation and know very well, that it's a hurdle we need to overcome, but they believed in the journey, and they believed in the light, that would come if we're able to scale through and survive the storm. And that made a huge impact even on me as a person. It made me appreciate the loyalty. It made me appreciate the dedication, to work. These are people who will be up at 2 a.m., still writing code, still trying to figure things out. They will call meetings that I'm not even aware of. I probably get to know 2 or 3 days later when the, solution is here, and they go, oh, we now have an answer to this challenge we've been having, in this core part of the module. Like, oh, really? Tell me about it. How was it solved? And then they go, oh, yeah, when we had a meeting, myself and 2 others, 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. I'm like, wow, really? I thought I was the only one. So that was really, really instrumental, in what became, the end result, of the business, really. And we were able to build out, a couple of products, that scaled, and did pretty well in the industry, well enough to produce a merger, and acquisition, right? That became part of the, Edutech Global conglomerate, and it's a fantastic journey, fairly interesting. So in essence, qualities, it's all about the people, character, is highly, highly critical. Like I said, skill can be taught, right? But, the character is of ultra importance.
All right, thank you so much, Femi. Wow. I don't know. For those taking notes, I think I took some very key points. Character is important. People with a mindset of growth and approach to problem solving. And I think while you mentioned in passing, they had to make sacrifices. So if you're a budding tech owner or budding tech CEO, as the case may be, you want to ensure that you are putting a team that is, they have the mindset for growth, because there'll be challenges and setbacks, and you want to have people, the right people on your team with the right mindset. Please, if you're just tuning in, kindly mute your mic as the webinar is on already. Okay, to my next question. So, we've seen over time that startups have, launched and then soon fold up. But I was going to ask, you mentioned something about, was it multi-stream or multiverse? I didn't quite get that. Multi-stream, yes?
Stream. Mhm.
Yeah, multi-stream. Okay. So I wanted to ask, it leads to this next question I have here. So I've noticed that over time, some startups launched, they soon fold up as quickly as they, launch out, even when it appears they've done their due diligence. So what factors would you say limit the lifespan of a startup, especially in our ecosystem? We'll soon go to funding, because I know that is something everybody wants to, really find out about, how to get tech idea funded and all that. But let's talk about the challenges now. So what factors do you think limits the lifespan of a startup? Because you have several companies coming up and then going down as soon as they start, and then you hear, okay, how about this startup? They really have a good idea. Their product was meant to, take over the market. So what factors do you think would limit the lifespan, especially in our ecosystem?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so this is reality. As an entrepreneur, I know about failure. And the fact, is that 9 out of 10 startups will fail. It's the hard truth. But one that each and every one of us will do well to meditate on. Sometimes entrepreneurs may even want to write down, their failure post-mortem before they launch their business, because the possibility of it failing is really, really high. But then the core is not to be deterred regardless, right? There are a couple of things, to put in mind, and that is, what's your why? Why are you doing it? What's your motivation? Why did you get into it, right? So that down the road, like we said, it's guaranteed that it's going to be challenging. And there's 90% chance that it's going to fail. But then, in the face of all of that, what are you going to do? So an optimistic entrepreneur needs a dose of reality now and then. It's not meant to discourage, but to encourage everyone to actually work smarter and harder. The average lifespan of a startup is 5 to 10 years. Some startups have actually, stayed for much longer. I mean, Google and Facebook, have defied the odds, and there's quite a number of, new ones, in the system as well. So instead of looking at why startups fail, let's look at why they succeed. The ones that succeed, what made them succeed. There are a couple of things, that should be put in perspective, and that is having a product that is perfect for the market, right? That is key. I'm trying to remember who said the saying. There is nothing as good as an idea whose time has come. We've had some unfortunate instances where, you hear that a product or an idea was ahead of its time, and unfortunately, kind of lost steam, right? Just because the world wasn't ready for it. We've had a lot of instances like that. But if you had a product that has a market that is ready, that comes out at the right time, that is meeting an apparent need, fantastic. If we can draw from what happened with the pandemic, it changed the game for a lot of businesses, right? While some businesses lost revenue, some actually increased their revenue in 100-folds, right? Most notable was Zoom. Zoom's revenue increased 400% in the first year. That's an idea whose time has come. And they basked in it. I mean, their valuation skyrocketed by, I think, 250%, you know, and they valued in the billions overnight, literally overnight. What's good for them is they stayed in the game. They've been in business for years, right, before the pandemic hit, you know, but they were able to keep going. They were able to, you know, keep driving on. And then the pandemic came, and I can say, you know, they were the chosen ones, and they were able to leverage that, you know, to become gigantic. Now, the other thing is to have the mindset of not ignoring anything. You know, a good product idea and a strong technical team are not a guarantee for sustainable business, really. And you shouldn't ignore business processes, you know, for a company just because they say, well, it's not my job, you know. My account, how do I put it now? My task is to do A, B, C. D, E, F is somebody else's responsibility. You know, when you have that kind of mindset in the team, honestly, it's a recipe for disaster, you know. And then you hear things like, oh, they had a great product, they had a strong team. So what happens to them? It's actually because a number of things left ignored, a number of things were not paid attention to, you know, and then it created a loophole or a break in the system, and the whole ship sank. So I try to use an analogy when I, you know, talk to my team. You know, we're all in a ship. Try to imagine it. We're all in a ship together. Yes, some people, you know, are working in the engine room. Some people are about cleaning. Some people about the electricals. In short, they had people who paid attention to something. However, should there be a leak in the system, let's say somehow a hole was punched in by accident, and then we started taking on water, the guy who is responsible for the electricals cannot say, oh, there's a leak in room 5. It's not my business, right? Maintenance should take care of it. When the situation gets worse, they will pay attention to it. You have that mindset, the whole ship is going down. That's guaranteed. Which goes back to, you know, having the right team. So you need to have people, you know, who would see such a situation and raise the alarm. Like, we have a big problem here. We need to solve it. Note the word we. You need to have the right team. You know, you need to have team players. So we see this problem. Who is the best person, you know, who has the best experience to solve it? Oh, it's the maintenance person. All right, maintenance, this is a problem. How are we going to fix it? How can we help? What do you need? It becomes everyone's emergency, right? And that helps because we're all looking out for each other, because we're all in the same boat. We need a winning team, you know, and we need the boat, right, to survive the trip to get to the end. If the boat sinks, we all fail, right? You know, they say the chain is as strong as its weakest link. The same thing applies. So you don't want a system where, you know, some things are ignored. Now, you also want a setup that allows you to grow fast. Now, you would equally have observed, I mean, in this day and age, everything happens very quickly. Everything is breakneck speed now. And that's true. And for businesses as well, I mean, you couldn't be more ready. And what do I mean? Times are changing fast. Things are changing fast. Perceptions are changing fast. For a business to survive, you need to be ahead of the game. You need to know what is going on. You need to be able to change strategy very, very quickly. You know, there is the saying that I use with my team as well. Let's not be afraid to try new things And then let's fail quickly, let's fail early, let's fail forward, and then quickly pivot, quickly make changes, quickly make adjustments. It's actually fine to fail at some things, but what's important is that we learn very quickly and adapt the business so we can stay afloat. Those are key and core, things, that we need to know. So the other bits, goes back to or ties to, being able to adapt very quickly, and that means to have a team that knows how to recover. So we have this grand plan. We're going into 2022 with this plan, with this strategy, but then we get to see that the market realities are dictating differently. We as a team should know how to come back together, rally around, be intuitive as well enough to know that we need to adapt, we need to pivot, we need to make changes fairly quickly. Some of these things might be scary, like, okay, this means we're going into the unknown. We should not be scared to do that. We should take it headlong. If we fail, that's fine, it's experience. But then we need to be determined, to recover from that failure as quickly as possible, right? We can take a very quick, reference to what happened with the ride-hailing services, with the motorcycle business. I think we had a couple of them at the time. There was Max NG, there was GoCada as well. Exactly, and then we saw what happened, with government policy overnight. That businesses were rendered useless, literally quite overnight, right? And some of them failed, right, because they could not recover. But we all see what GoCada did. They quickly switched strategy and then became a delivery, service system. And they're still in business till today. So it's key and highly, highly important, to have that, especially in our ecosystem, those capacities, abilities. And that's how you build resilience, and stay true to the game and stay in the game, right, to actually survive it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Femi. I just had to come in here, when you finish. So I think I first heard your story at the Nest Innovation Hub, and I was very intrigued. Now, while you were talking again, there are two things that you said that again jumped at me. Where you said you're coming into this industry with that knowledge that it may fail, because I mean statistics show that 50%, I'm even sure it's probably higher than that, fail. But
you're
it's
90%.
90, there you go.
Yeah.
You're coming in with the mindset that it may fail, but I want to give it a try. That's one. Then two, even if it fails, there's something I can pick up from this. So now I'm understanding your story where you say, I had one before that didn't pan out so well, but the lessons I learned, I took it into Edutech, which again is a big lesson for all of us here today. When you start something, it may not go as you want. It may actually fail. But what's the lesson that you can take from there? Move on and probably add or start something else or add to what you're already doing. And I mean, I was very appreciative of that. Now, also while you were talking, this is a question I wanted to ask. You mentioned that services like Zoom, blew during the pandemic. During the pandemic, I also noticed that the educational part of my business grew because I was teaching people online how to do now, like webinars. So my question, was centered around there, and I want your opinion because I mean, you stayed so long in this space. So the question is, do you believe the ed tech as an industry also grew during the pandemic because there was this unsatiable desire for people to want to learn? They wanted to learn digital marketing. They wanted to learn how do I start a business. So I want to speak on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Tope. So I mean, the fact is, yes. I mean, there was a positive, impact, in the education technology space by virtue of the pandemic, because it was the only solution available at the time, to overcoming the shortcomings, right, or the after effects or the effects of the pandemic, because I mean everybody was locked in, and how else would we connect? How else could we keep things going? Technology has a limit. You can't lock it up, right? You will still find a way. And yes, they even in my business as well, there was an uptick, around that period. Remember I said something, when our journey started, perception, understanding, part of the challenges they had to face, acceptance. We realized that the narratives changed. For the first time, it became a lot easier to talk to people about education technology. People were a lot more receptive. Some people I had spoken to years before who really couldn't be bothered now came knocking. Yeah, I remember that conversation we had 2 years ago. Yeah, I'd like to know more about it. It became a lot easier to get people to listen. It became a lot easier to get people to wanting to know more. It definitely created the environment, for proper growth. And quite a number of, edtech businesses were able to leverage that and actually scale, successfully. And that's only fantastic, I mean, then edtech was everything. Edtech was very popular. Collectively, the industry grew by an insane amount, and it validated, what the edtech businesses have always been trying to say. I mean, in my case, it validated what we've been trying to preach, that there is an answer, there is a solution. The virtual way of doing things, can work, is doable, and we were able to prove that out. And then I'm happy to get the feedback, as well, considering that time you equally recorded an uptick, with your numbers, right, in people who wanted to, consume content digitally. Yes, they were forced into that situation. They were forced to accept it, to give it consideration. And a lot of people, were converted, became advocates. A lot of people were able to leverage it, and a lot of people were able to make progress in their personal lives. You rightly said, was a time as well that people decided to upskill. A lot of people were locked at home. What else could they do? So for students who were in school, they were able to continue school. For people who had physical jobs, right, jobs that demanded that they be physically present in an office, but could no longer do that, had to think of other creative ways, to actually progress. And then a lot of people went the upskilling route, because they started to hear about what's available out there, what technology has to offer, right? So it became, a pivotal point, to actually improve the acceptance and adaptability of education technology as a whole.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So, I mean, we've gone 1 hour. I mean, you're such an engaging speaker, but I realize that we have an audience, and I want to make sure that they too can ask their questions. So I usually do this on all my interviews. So while I'm saying this, I just want to put it out there. If you have questions, please start writing it in the chat box, and Sunday will read it out. So this is my final question for you, Femi. So, I mean, in the Nigerian space, for the longest of time, I even think till now, fintech is like the cash cow. Fintech is going to be it, or it is it right now. A lot of people predict that the one that comes right after it is Edutech. So first of all, your opinion on that, and then, I mean, every payment is a big issue. We need to solve that before other industries can start. Not before, but majorly that needs to be sorted out before other industries can start tapping, from this tech world. So I also would like to ask, what's your prediction outside of Ed? So you can't mention Edutech because a lot of people say that comes right after. But what's your opinion on it? And can you give us like a prediction of 2 or 3 other ones? Yeah. Okay.
That's interesting. Thanks for that. Actually, I think, and this is personal to me, I think the next big thing is going to be blockchain technology. Now, when I say blockchain, I don't mean Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is just an alternative currency based on blockchain technology. Blockchain technology actually has a wider, array of, applicability, right, across board. I mean, this is a technology that could usher in, dramatic transformations, offering, fantastic ways to track supply chains end to end, to manage smart contracts on a huge or large scale, faster, more efficient payment processing, also a way to enforce proof of ownership, right? But right now it's still very new, it's still a few institutions are testing the waters. We definitely do not have the adoption yet. It's not gotten mainstream, but I actually do see it getting into virtually everything we do, in the next couple of years. We could say it's in pilot mode right now, but full implementation is at least a few years away. So in my opinion, I think that's coming. It's inevitable, really. It's going to happen.
Wow.
And that still doesn't stop EdTech though, FYI. If you're playing the long-term game, I mean, education will forever be a basic need, right? Any society that will prosper, that has a hunger to prosper, needs to educate its people, needs to educate its population. I mean, we have what, 9 billion people on Earth today? Our physical infrastructure cannot support all of those people, effectively or sufficiently. So education technology, is going to continue to be in high demand. I mean, data will state by 2025, the edtech space is expected to be worth about 280 billion. If numbers, serve me right, $280 billion. That's a lot. That's a lot of money. So the future is still bright in edtech. The future is bright for technology as a whole. I mean, it's come here to be a part of our life, effectively.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Femi, for that. Blockchain. So we should start looking at blockchain. I've taken that down. Okay, some of the points you mentioned, I find them quite interesting. Fail quickly, fail forward, try as much as possible as a business. Now, for business owners joining the webinar, or boarding tech product owners, pivot, adapt to the business, try as much as possible to stay afloat. You would fail. That's the thing, but have that mindset that once you fail, you're failing forward, and then have the mindset to get things up and running again. So we have some questions coming in already, but before I start taking questions, I'd also like to ask this funding. Now, this is a very important aspect. Yes. So how did you go about funding at EdTech? How did EdTech go about funding? Were they like sponsors? Were resources solicited internally? How did you go about funding?
Okay, so there are different school of thoughts, around that. I'm a bit more traditional. New way of doing things now is to, go VC route, raise funds, and just, the different seeds and series routes is quite popular now. In our case, and permit me to add, to give context by sharing the story, of the, startup that got into Edutech Global. So I funded, that startup. I funded MST out of pocket. It was hard. It was difficult. And dare I say, it got to a point I pretty much sold everything I owned, right, to keep it going, to keep it running. One, that's how much I believed in it. it was a period that was hard. I mean, it was also a period that was defining, because you got some really interesting comments and gave you a new perspective and also, perception. Got some really interesting comments, that were a bit shocking. You got comments like, oh, wow, now you've had to sell all of your things. There's more to this. What's going on with you? Right? But then you realize at that point, I couldn't understand why they didn't see what I was seeing, right? And believing that this was worth all of the sacrifice and all of the trouble, but it panned out, right? One, I had answered the basics and the fundamentals, about this product and about this business. It's an inevitable future. So getting on and also creating value, that is needed. It was just a matter of time. So I played the long game, right? The truth is, it's not easy to get funded. It's not easy to get funds. So the typical routes, right, for funding your ideas or funding your business, either you do it out of pocket, or you raise funds from friends and family, people who are close to you, or you could, go the debt route, of actually, generating the funds, and then, well, believing that the business or product is going to gain traction, and then you use that, that progress to offset or pay back, the loans. And that's debt financing route. Or you go the route of investments, right? And having people invest in your idea or invest in your product, and then, you work so hard, right, to make sure that it actually works. Now, the truth is these different, opportunities or these different options, have their own, they have their pros and cons, right? Some are easier to do, but then a lot more difficult to manage. While some are a lot more difficult to do, but gives you more control, about the vision and the future, of your business. So at the end of the day, it boils down to what you want to do really as a person, and what your vision, plans, and understanding, of your business is. So funding will always be there as long as you solve two major problems or two major things. Make sure you have the right team. And that goes back to what we had said before of having, character-driven team. Then have the right talent. Make sure you have the right people who are good at what they do. Keep your team lean. Funding will come. That I can pretty much guarantee it. Funding will come. It might not be easy, depending on whatever route it is you choose. But if you have those previous two ingredients, in the mix, in the right mix, funding will come. You will meet the right people. But it's not easy. Nothing good comes cheap. And then you know what they say, about an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is the one who can jump off a cliff without wings, right? And the plan is figure out how to get wings before you crash. An entrepreneur is the one you don't need to see the complete length of the steps on your staircase before you start. Start climbing, right? That space shifts ever so frequently. You cannot wait till you have all your ducks in the rows before you start, right? Even investors would like to see, what have you done? How did you get to where you are? What have you put in, right? If they see that you have the entrepreneurial mindset, you have the entrepreneurial spirit, you are driven, you are self-motivated, they will be much more confident, right, in investing in your business. FYI, there are a lot of scenarios and situations where the investment is not even in the product, but in you as a person. They trust that you can make the dream happen, right? And that is you having the right spirit, having the right mindset, having the right personality, right? And that goes a long way, in the success. So you find quite a lot of scenarios where it's about the people that steer the business? Are they driven? Are they true entrepreneurs? And then in such instances, you actually find that such businesses go a very, very long way. They don't fizzle out that quickly.
All right. Thank you so much for that enlightening one, Femi. All right. So we'll start taking questions. I have some questions here already that I'm going to be reading out. And I believe those who have asked the questions are hoping to get, answers. And I believe you do justice to that. So I'll take the first question. This one says, "Hi, I am Michael. A number of points well said. However, I pretty much transitioned my product from Edutech to ERP. I don't know what ERP means, but it says here's why. Policies. How do we regulate or create around these policies, knowing that it is easy for the government to hijack solutions since they dictate what education is?" It says, it further goes ahead to say, universities, for instance, have rules that stop you from duplicating materials, lecture notes, or past questions and all. And then, do I take all the questions or you take them?
Let's go one by one.
Okay, all right, okay.
All right, so that's a very, very beautiful question, from, I think, Michael, you said. I highly appreciate that. And I mean, I can see you pivot your business pretty quickly, from EdTech to ERP, that's enterprise resource planning, and that's fine, really. Like I said, it's crucial to be able to pivot your business, based on your immediate realities. Every business will always have risks, and you've kind of, highlighted one key one, talking about the fact that, policies can change overnight. The government can wake up today and introduce something new that will just put a monkey wrench in the whole thing. But then you need to be ready, right? You need to be ready to pivot. You need to be ready to adapt, just like Gokada did, by reference. But let's go back to education. Now, education in Nigeria still has a very, 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 very long way to go. That in of itself is an opportunity. There's a lot we still need to get right. And that's because, unfortunately, to a very large extent, we are still driven by old values and old ways of doing things, right? That's why, enlightenment is key, right? We need to spread the word. There's one thing I try to, say, and that is, your circle of influence, right? If you believe in education technology, in its future, in what it brings to the table, spread the word around you and let those ones spread the word, around them. So the circle of influence route, it grows. Now, we need to make a lot of changes, policies, alike. And let's give kudos to the government, right? They actually are trying. Yes, currently the Nigerian Universities Commission governs, the operations of universities. And by that virtue as well, the plans for universities to go fully online. We have to work with them as well, as regulators, to get our university partners to go fully online. They actually do have, policies that make sense, and some that were a bit restrictive. One, it's new terrain. We still have to try it out. Data still has to come back, for them to then see, and appreciate the changes that still need to be made. The whole scheme still needs to be fine-tuned. And I see a future where all of this will happen. It's inevitable, right? So the opportunities will always be there. We need to also look at why some of these policies were put in place. In the case of the lecture materials, from preventing lecturers from being duplicating, lecture notes. My understanding is that, there was a reality, that that avenue where was being used to be fund driven, and that kind of took away the main attention, of proper tutoring and proper lecturing. Now, you could argue the infrastructure isn't a place to make all of that effective, and people are finding ways to be creative about it. Yes, right. Is banning it the right way to go? Maybe not. But that was the system trying to do something, right? What can we do? If we see such, things, that's where we need to be innovative. I mean, the word innovate is about doing something a new way, right? If you find a way, is restrictive, is not productive, then innovate around it, and that's one thing technology has made possible. That's where you now need to think outside the box. How can I adapt technology to this? And we've seen, possibilities, we've seen opportunities come out of this, whole policy enforcement as well. So it's something that's going to keep growing. We just need to make sure that we're ahead, and we have to make sure we keep innovating, to make decent progress.
All right, Sunday, it appears here no more there. So let me take, there's actually a first question at the top from Toluwalash. From Oguntayo. So, I mean, he has maybe like 2 or 3 questions. So, but let me read it out. The first one was, how do you pick a technical team, especially when you're building a network of techies as a co-founder? That's 1. 2, I read the 5 stages of startup recently, and looks like funding or making profit is not usually the ultimate goal. So here, what kind of mindset should drive your team, and how do you go about funding your idea? I think you have touched on it, but I think we can just give a brief summary.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Oguntayo, for those beautiful questions. So yes, I already spoke a bit about these. Having the right team is just super important. It's uber important, and it's crucial to the success of your business. So making sure you have the right team is very, very important. So you want people who believe in what it is you're doing, who believe in your vision. Right? You need such people, and you can find them. They might not be easy to find, though. That's true, but you need to be resilient. You might need to go through 20, 30, 50, 100 people before you to find the right one, right? But you have to be dedicated to the cause, and you need to be careful as well, because having having a wrong mix, sometimes will be difficult to correct. But not impossible either. And like I said, it's okay to make mistakes, right? The thing is learn and adapt as quickly as possible. So you want people who believe in what you're doing. You want people who are motivated, who are self-motivated, not just motivated. You don't need, especially at the beginning, right, of your startup, you don't need people you are going to chase around to do things. You need people who are self-motivated, people who will drive you yourself, You need, and people who are naturally like that will be people who believe, right, and agree in the goals and vision, that you bring to the table. So you need self-starters. You need people who will go the extra mile. You need people who will work with you. You don't need people you will chase around. I mean, there are times I've held interviews, for like key positions. And I go straight out and say, I want someone who can take this headache away from me. I have more than enough, on my plate already. But I want to be able to go to bed at night, rest assured that, oh, Miss A or Mr. B has that covered, right? It's a lot of stress to come around and then see that ABCD is still not done. And you look for Mr. A, why is ABCD still not done? And then he or she goes, yeah, I was waiting for. You don't need such people at that crucial point of your business. The beginning is the most important point. So you need to start right. You need people who will light you on fire, and say, oh, okay, I'm done with ABCD. What's next? What are we doing next? Or someone who will wake up in the morning and say, I was thinking about ABCD. I think we should make it BCDA. Why? Because I read, I read a report, right? Or I read an expose that showcased going this combination is actually a better way. Will potentially give us, right, a better chance of survival. You want people who are always thinking and ideating. So that composition is very, very important. Then you said something about stages of startup. Yeah, that's true. Like I said, I mean, funding is down on the list. For me, if I was going to order it, I mean, character is number one. You need to have the right person. Then have the right talent. Then we can, talk about funding. I mean, funding will come all by itself. You have, those right mix in place, because when you're able to, if you go the route of, getting funds from people, before anybody will part with his or her hard-earned money, they need to trust that, one, you actually will be able to deliver, or two, you have the capacity, three, you have the right team, to actually make this happen. So funding is down the list. If you don't have the right mix of, character, and talent, funding is going to be a challenge. And even if you have funding, it does not mean the business will survive. We've had businesses that had the funding but had the wrong mix of character and talent. It failed.
Well, that one was deep. Even if you have funding, it doesn't.
It doesn't suffice. Funding doesn't suffice. Okay,
Wow.
so
Yes.
I'll take the next question, or you go ahead.
Sunday, go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
This question is from Comfort. Comfort Olivi says, the rise in edtech startups is mind-blowing, I guess because there's a huge demand. How then does your startup, I think this is a question directed at you, Femi, how then does your startup stand out in these competitive markets?
Thank you very much for that, Comfort. And that's a rudimentary, that's a fundamental question. It's a fundamental that's applicable not just for edtech, but really any business. I mean, how do you stay relevant, in the competitive, world out there? You have to keep innovating, right? And then you have to raise the bar. If anything, what technology has done is to level the playing field across the world. No one business has an excuse anymore. You can't say you don't have access to opportunities. No, technology has leveled the playing field, right? So you raise the bar, and make sure that you are, one, operating at an international level and not just domestic, not just local, right? And if you're able to survive at that level, you survive pretty much anywhere. And then you need to be able to, like I said, ideate, and you need to be able to do it very quickly, right? You need to always be checking, right, the market. How are your users receiving your product? How are your users using your product, right? Create a feedback system. Ask questions, what can we do differently? Or how can we make this better? Create an inclusive platform, that creates the experience to say you are part of the community. You are part of the ones that are actually making this product fantastic. Would love your feedback. That has actually worked for us, and now by virtue of that fact, we've had partners, business partners that have stayed with us for almost 10 years. And then the beautiful, or should I say fantastic, offshoot of that partnership is word of mouth reference, because now they're able to tell other businesses, hey, look, I have this tech partner that is actually making, this whole experience for me a breeze. I know I don't have to worry about the technology component, of my setup, or a technology component of my business. You need to talk to them, right? And that goes a very, very long way as well. But then what that means is you have to stay on your toes, because you cannot afford to slow down, right? Because you are not the only one in the game. You're not the only one in business. You're not the only one thinking, right? And as you start to do well and get better, you become a target. You are going to have all new businesses who are going to come, who are going to potentially introduce new ways of doing things, and who are going to want to undercut you. Because when I started, that's how I started. I looked at the big names in the business, the main products in the business, and I went like, how will we undercut these big names, right? Studied their systems ever so well, built around it, added quite a lot more features, made things modular, and went after them. And traction has been building, year on year. So the key thing is to continue to ideate, to continue to stay ahead, to continue to stay relevant, and then create an inclusive platform, where you're able to take feedback, both good, both bad, right? You should expect that, but find ways to turn the bad feedback to good ones by fixing whatever the complaints are. So those are highly essential.
All right, thank you so much. I believe, Comfort, your question has been answered. Create, always ideate, ensure that you are innovative as much as possible. And I think I took that down. Yes, create a feedback system and be ready to handle criticism and fix them or work on it as the case may be. So I have another question here. And this person asks, Ibrahim Razak says, I think you've answered that in person, but you may want to throw more light on that. Hi, I am Razak. What can kill a growing organization or business? I may want to put in, okay, please go ahead, Femi.
Okay. What can kill a growing organization or business? A lot of things can. How do I put this? If the business is not agile or adaptable, it's actually set up to fail. That's almost guaranteed. If it doesn't have the right leadership as well, it's almost guaranteed to fail. One big lesson I learned also is, if you're a business owner, don't create the business around yourself. Don't create a business that cannot function without you, right? If you want to play the long game. We see a lot of people who have trust issues. I can't blame them. I can't, but you have to learn to trust. And this goes back to one thing we've said so many times, and that is having the right team, right? If you have the right team, you need to be able to trust them, as well, right? And ensure that they have the best interest of the business in mind. Those are, the immediate ones that come to mind. I mean, of course, by all means, there could be a whole lot more, talking about the structure, and the way of doing business. Those are all things that can actually tank a business if not managed properly, right? So the leadership is one, adaptability, is another, agility is another, having the right mix of team is another. I mean, those are core things, that if you're able to get those right, it increases the possibility, it increases the potential, success of your business.
Thank you so much, Femi. Two more questions. This one says, as a startup co-founder yourself, do you consider it advisable hiring someone for a CEO position? And I think that's in a way connected to what you said earlier about not making the startup around yourself. Or do you consider it advisable given the huge challenges that we have these days around, partnership and ownership? Do you consider it advisable to hire someone, for the CEO position outside yourself?
Yes, thank you very much for that. That's another beautiful question. And the truth is this: if you want your business to scale, and when I say scale, that's to grow and grow fast, you can't do it on your own. It's literally impossible. So you have to be open to partnerships. Now, with regards to bringing on a CEO, what I promote is this: play to your strength. Right? So me, I'll take myself as an example. Yes, I'm currently a CTO. That's my strong point. I'm not as strong, right? If you look at the basic skill set, that is required, for being a CEO. That's why my co-founding partner, currently, officiates as the CEO. She's a lot more business-minded than I am, right? So we're able to bring those two mix, to the table, and it's worked fantastically well, for the business, right? My core focus is on the technology side of things and making sure that that works, and that grows and that is properly groomed. She focuses on, the business side of things, growth and strategy and stuff like that, and we're able to, have regular meetups and conversations around, the different perspectives, and how we can push things forward. So she's bringing her best to the table, I'm bringing my best to the table, and then we make sure we do this as well for everybody else that joins the team, from the management team, further down the chain. And that's key. That's how you can create a winning team, really. So depending on the size of the business, the stage, of the business growth at the point, you can decide, what's best really. So if something is not your strong suit, you can either go the route of, seeking out a mentor, who has more experience, in those areas that you are not good at, and let them, mentor you to be able to handle those bits, till the business is healthy enough to take on, somebody else. Or you take on someone, as a part owner of the business. What's in it for them? They own a part of the business. You should be ready to do that, as long as you make sure that they bring something tangible, to the table. Because at the end of the day, you want it to be what is best for the business.
All right. Thank you so much, Femi. I think that was really awesome.
Sunday, let me come in here. So again, thank you very much. And I'm asking to come in. Sunday, can you mute your mic? And I'm asking to come in because we have actually gone over the required time. We told Mr. Olufemi that we will stay just 1 hour, but it's about 34 minutes after our stipulated time. So first of all, I want to start off by saying a big thank you again to you for jumping on this call. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Mentor Me organization, because on this call today, they got a lot of people who are in that, space, edutech. They have an interest there. They have an interest in creating edutech companies. Like, it's their interest. So again, for a lot of you that are on this call, I want to say a big shout out to you. So what I usually like to do at the end is encourage you to follow Valure Capital. Now, what we basically do is we are trying to create more awareness for young people in the tech space. We do a lot of training courses so that at the end of the day, we can give them opportunities to work within tech. So if you can follow us, you have a brother, a sister, friend who is interested in acquiring tech skills, I'll drop the link below. Please do follow us on all our social media handles, because we intend to do more interviews like this where we get tech CEOs that you can talk directly to. Now, I'm going to quickly maybe give like an allowance for 1 or 2 more questions, because I don't know if you heard when I said you can throw the floor open, but I honestly don't want to go past maybe like an 11:45, just so that I don't keep you and we don't go back on we've already gone back on it, our word of, this is just going to be a 1 hour interview. But what I'm going to do right now is I want to drop a link. I don't know if any of you got my email where I said we want to say a little thank you for coming up on the call, so or for jumping on this webinar to engage Olufemi. So I'll be dropping a link where you just give us your details, and we hope to send you a little thank you. So Sunday, can you take over for me while I get the link?
All right, Tokwe, thank you so much. So the floor is open for 2 more questions, as Tokwe has said, but I have one here I'd like to ask from our guest, Mr. Femi. So this person says, which of these would you say a startup can do without? I think this is quite tricky. Which of this would you say a startup can do without? Talent, funding, skill, or character? And why? Yes,
That's an
which of these do you think a startup can do without? I guess the person is trying to ask which of this can in the order, in scale of preference or scale of priority now, which can...
Yeah, so interesting. As tricky as it is, I think for me, it's a no-brainer. Character is going to be top of the list, really. You can't go wrong with prioritizing that. And the list is going to be funding, right? Because if you have the right mix of the other ones, talking about, I think, character, skill, talent, if you have a right mix of those, you will not have a problem with funding. It might take time, right? But, it will come, and then your business has a better fighting chance, out there in the world. So the core, if we were to order it, I would say character, talent, and skill. I don't know what other thing you mentioned, but funding is going to be last on the list.
Funding, okay. All right,
Yes.
Thank you so much. So in an era where, this next question says, in an era where there are a lot of tech courses available out there, which tech course do you advise for young tech enthusiasts?
Which tech course?
Management, backend, front end, Java, HTML,
Yeah.
JavaScript, all that. So
Okay, so this is what I'm going to say. I cannot say, one particular, course is better than the other, right? What's most important is, what's your passion? What do you like doing? What do you enjoy? What do you find fulfilling? Whatever it is, go after it, and let that passion be your motivator, and let it drive you. If you are interested in tech is huge. Dip your hands in everything. Try everything out, right? You can take short courses, or take explainer, short experiences, and to give you an insight into what this is about, right? Before you can then start narrowing things down, and then focus in one particular area. I can tell you right from the start, no one of them is easy. If you want to do it right, everything is difficult. I mean, going into software development, for example, when software development was a big thing as well, being a programmer and all, I had a lot of people come around and say, oh, I want to write software, I want to be a programmer. But then you realize they say that because that's what everybody is saying. Oh, if you're a programmer, you are in for a very good time. You are going to be in demand. You're going to make a lot of money. But the truth is, if you're not motivated, if it's not a passion, or something you enjoy, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be very difficult, right? Because it's not an easy thing to do. Writing code is actually the easy bit. Writing functional code, or writing or developing software that actually works, is the work itself. It's like saying, spelling out words, right, in a notebook. That's easy. But being able to write an essay, that makes a lot of sense, that's the differentiator right there. So you need to have a passion for it. You need to have, keen interest in it, so that when the going gets tough, you are self-motivated to get going, to keep going, not to be deterred. And I found that to be true. There are many people that have come, oh, I want to be a programmer. Oh, sure, by all means, you're welcome. They do the first month, and then you just don't see them anymore, right? But then you find those that stick to it, that stick with it, and then they go on to do fantastic things. And then you realize that they're able to adapt what they have learned and what the skills they've acquired to actually solve a problem in the world. And before you know it, they're on the world map, doing big things. So I would say be driven by your passion, be driven by your interest. Keep your options open. If you're new to the tech world, try everything, and find the one that agrees with you the most. I can promise you will be able to, get good financial compensation across any one of them if you are that good at it. Because good hands are in high demand across any field, really.
all right, thank you so
So
much.
be it product management, be it product design, be it front-end development, be it back-end development, be it quality assurance. So these are all different areas in tech, that you could do. Or artificial intelligence, That's another one. It's a very, very big space, you know.
All right, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much, Femi. Thank you so much. So I think for who asked the question, get good at it, and then the right financial compensation will come alongside. And then
Correct.
please find what find where your strength lies, and you can also test the waters for each and every one of them and see the one that suits or aligns with your passion. All right, it's been an
And if I might add before you go, permit me, sorry. I also want to say, you're not too old to do anything, really. If you are 50 years old, if you are 25, if you're 40, you can get into any one of these fields and make a life out of it. So don't be deterred.
All right. Thank you so much. I think that's an amazing one. That'll be a take home for everyone, like Femi's 2 cents to everyone. Don't be deterred. Old, young people are transitioning. I know of lawyers who are transitioning from law into tech. Yes, and they are finding it, they are doing well in that field. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining on the webinar. We would have to wrap up at this point. I do want to believe that you had an amazing time. You were enlightened, and then I know you have a lot of take home from this webinar. A huge thank you so much to our guests. Thank you so much, Femi, for jumping on this call. We really do appreciate you. And then we hope that some other time you'll be able to, oblige our request of inviting you again. Yes?
Thank you very much. It's an honor, and thank you very much for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. On that note, we have come to the end of this webinar. Do not forget to follow Walure Capital on our social handles. I don't know if Tope has dropped that yet. Kindly do that.
It's actually on the form that I asked them to fill. For everyone that stayed till the end, please fill this form. For these types of webinars, we're very big on rewarding you for the fact that you showed up. On that form, you're going to see our handles, which is Walure Capital on Twitter, Walure Capital on Instagram, and Walure Capital on LinkedIn. So be sure to follow us on all these channels. But between today and tomorrow, we'll be sending you a little thank you for jumping on this webinar. So bye, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Yes, till we send you another invite for another amazing time on our webinar. We do hope that, for talent, budding talent or tech enthusiasts, keep the passion, and then try as much as possible to stay relevant by being aware of the trends in the industry that you're looking to get into. Okay, on that note, we can call it a wrap on this webinar. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm Sunday Ashikba, and co-hosting this webinar with me was Tokbe Olofi, and then Olufemi Shonubi was our guest, the CTO and co-founder at Edutech Global. Femi, I don't know, is it possible for them to follow you on your social media handles? Do you want to drop that?
Oh, sure. Yes. By all means. I can share my LinkedIn. You could just search for me on LinkedIn, really. Just follow Femi Shonubi. I'm sure I'll pop up right there.
It's very easy to find. So just type Olufemi Shonubi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much.
Same
All right,
here.
guys. It's a pleasure doing this with you. We do hope to have this once again as soon as we can. Thank you for tuning in, and we enjoy the rest of your weekend. From all of us at Walure Capital, we say thank you for tuning in. Do enjoy the rest of the weekend, and bye.